Time for the Tar Heels to tip off ACC play, and it starts tonight with the struggling FSU team. Gotta take care of business.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Tuesday, December 30th, 2025. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Schade. You're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. Really appreciate you joining us for your first listen or your watch on this Tuesday. Special shout out to all the everydayers, all the members of the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, and of course, our great insiders as well. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. It is time to start ACC play, nearly the new year. It's hard to believe it's December 30th with FSU coming to town tonight. So we'll talk about how important it is to get off to a good start in ACC play. We'll get to our Four Corners preview, talking about how FSU fouls a ton, but Carolina's not making their free throws. All of that, a whole bunch of other stuff. We'll get to know Florida State a little bit. We'll make game predictions. Also, as we record, the Lady Tar Heels are up at Boston College. It is currently 46-18 at the half. Wow, that is a beatdown. We'll look at the score again as we get toward the end of the show. As I mentioned on Monday's show, this is the last show I will be recording at my parents' house where we were for Christmas. Big thanks to them for their great hospitality. Big thanks to my dad. My dad records videos. He plays whistles and is on YouTube. It's really great stuff. So big thanks to my dad for letting me use his space. Shouts to you, Scott Schade. You're the man. All right, which is funny because he's sitting right outside that door as I record this, and I'm sure is hearing me say it. So got to kick off ACC play tonight against a down FSU team with a brand new coach in Luke Laux. So the key for this is you have to take care of business. I feel like I've said that a lot throughout non-conference play, and now that same thing remains true here. When you have an inferior team, of which unfortunately FSU is this year, you cannot mess around. So what Carolina needs to do, and this is the first game off a bit of a break. As a reminder, they have not played since last Monday when they just annihilated ECU. You might remember that game coming off of the Ohio State game. So right now, this is not the time to mess around. This is not the time to turn in some sleepy performance like the USC Upstate game. Now is the time to back up what you did in non-con play by starting ACC play with a bang, starting with just like right out of the gate. Yes, Carolina is not going to win the tip because they seemingly never win the tip this year. However, outside of that, what you want to do is get this team down on the road early. This is a team that is not playing well. They have some wins, but they're all against bad teams. And so if you can get FSU down early and then just keep pouring it on, you put them in a situation where they're like, you know what? I'm really looking forward to my New Year's Eve plans tomorrow night. I'm really ready to go ahead and get on that plane and fly back down to Tallahassee. That is what you have to do in this basketball game. So what does that mean? You come out locked in. If you're Caleb Wilson and Henri Veesaar, you're ready to go. Get the ball inside. Let those guys go to work. Let them kick it out when they need to. If you're the outside guys, knock down shots. If you're Seth Trimble, get out in transition and run. Get FSU in foul trouble. All of that kind of stuff leads to putting a team down and then not letting them get back up off the mat. That is how you end 2025. This is the last game of 2025 before Carolina heads to Dallas on Saturday for their first time playing at SMU. And so that's what you want to see happen. So how is that going to manifest itself tonight? Well, the question is, yes, this FSU team is down, and yes, it's not Leonard Hamilton, it's a new coach, but still, this is a program that is always tough, always physical, always long. So the question is, are you Tar Heels tough enough to go to war with that team? Because while they haven't played well in non-conference play, they're not just going to show up and be like, oh, go ahead, Tar Heels, just beat the tar out of us, right? No. Probably the messaging to this Florida State team is, all right, boys, look, it was a rough non-con play, but now we have new life as we start ACC play. So let's come out and let's show the nation that we can upset these Tar Heels. Let's go out and be the aggressors. Let's go out and make them bring the fight to us. That's what FSU is going to be looking to do. And Carolina is going to have to live up to that. And a big part of that is, can North Carolina's defense in particular continue to do the great work they've been doing so far this season? You know the numbers because we've been talking about them over and over and over again. Carolina has held every single opponent they have played this year under 75 points. As we sit here, as I record right now, they are holding their opponents to an average of 63.5 points a game, which is 16th in the nation. You guys, that's crazy, crazy stuff. But here's the thing. FSU, while they are not playing great, they are going to test that defense because FSU comes in averaging 85 points a game. They play up tempo. And so if you are Carolina in this defense, how do you impose your will? Because yes, it's about Carolina going out and scoring points. But again, if this defense is and can be what we think it can be, that's going to start on the defensive end of the floor against a team getting 85 a game. How can Carolina impose their will? That's what I need to see, again, out of the gate, but then throughout the game. That was the beautiful thing about the ECU game. Remember, we talked about that was the most complete 40 minutes performance we had from the Tar Heels. They won all 4 quarters. They scored at least 20 points in all 4 quarters of that game. That's what you're looking for. Can Carolina not just win, but be dominant? That's what I want to see. And a big part of that defense imposing their will, one of the great pieces that FSU does have is their point guard, Robert McCray. And this dude is legit. And so what I'm looking to see is, can Carolina cut the head off the snake? He is their point guard, but you would expect that Seth Trimble, despite playing the 2, will be matched up on Robert McCray. I cannot wait to see what he does against him. This dude is leading the conference, leading the ACC in assists. So there's a lot of possibility there. So that's where it starts. Cut the head off the snake. Jamal Christian, one of our insiders, messaged me and said, look, Isaac, FSU is going to be a very interesting first game to me. They're not the same Florida State team we've known recently. The battle between McCray versus Seth Trimble is something I will definitely be watching, end quote. You know what, Jamal? Dude, that is spot on, because that is where FSU just doesn't really have the pieces. If Carolina can stop that, there's not going to be other guys that can step up and either with playmaking or with their own shot making can really affect and beat Carolina. So if Seth and anyone, because obviously the way Carolina switches, there will be other guys matched up on Robert McCray. I expect JP will get some time with him because his defense has been great. As guys switch off, you'll see Jarin Stevenson on him, you'll see other guards, etc. And that's the key, is shutting him down. So big ticket right out of the gate tonight, first game of ACC play. Can you be dominant? Can you impose your will? Can you come out in your first game after a week off, after the Christmas break, and just go to work? That's what we're watching for tonight. Now, FSU fouls more than any other team in the ACC, but you know just as well as I do that the Heels aren't exactly elite at the free throw line right now. So we're going to have to look at that, how that all mixes together, that and the rest of the Four Corners preview coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about game time, y'all, there's nothing like college football season. Tailgates, packed stadiums, being right there in the middle of it. The energy, the bands, these moments that you remember forever. Heck, we've got college football playoff quarterfinals starting tomorrow night on New Year's Eve and the other 3 games on New Year's Day. It's going to be electric football. But getting tickets to these games, man, that used to be the frustrating part because of long queues, trying to get logins, prices jumping up on you when you got to checkout. And that's why there's Game Time, man. It is the app that gives the advantage back to you, the fans. It's the easiest way to unlock amazing college football tickets and experiences in just a few taps. You can do it. You can get on, look at those college football playoff games. Maybe you can find you some last minute great deals on those tickets. Maybe you want to go to this game tonight because the crowd needs to be loud and crazy against Florida State to kick off ACC play. Remember, students aren't back yet, and Carolina needs you there. Tickets for tonight's game go for as cheap as $52 to get in the door. Man, go grab you a ticket, cheer on the Tar Heels. And I love how incredibly easy the Game Time app is. You can go from browsing to buying in just minutes. I also love the zone deals. What you do is you pick the section you want to sit in and let Game Time pick the specific seat for you, and you save even more money when you do it that way. So take the guesswork out of buying college basketball and football tickets with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Thanks so much for making Locked On Tar Heels your first listen or watch of the day. Thanks so much for making the Locked On Network the #1 sports podcast network. I also want to make sure you're aware of our brand new program called the Everydayers Club. It's a club that's got 2 different tiers depending on what level you want to do and what perks you are interested in. Would love for you to check that out. The highest level is called the All Access tier, a great opportunity for you to go next level with the show. That link's in the show notes. You can check it out there. All right, time for the Four Corners preview. Carolina hosting Florida State tonight. First thing you need to know about this game. These are 4 things that I am watching for that could determine how this game plays out. Number 1, fouls on both sides are going to play a major factor, and for very different reasons. Here's what I mean. On the Carolina side of it, we've talked about this a couple of times, so you may be aware of it, but Carolina fouls the fewest times of the entirety of the ACC, just 15 fouls a game the Tar Heels are committing, which, by the way, is best in the ACC and 30th in the nation. Really good Carolina defending. You know, we talked about how well this defense is playing, but they're also doing it without fouling, which is good because that means they're being physical, but they're moving their feet, not using their hands to reach and all that stuff. That's great. On the flip side of the fouls, though, the Seminoles foul the most times in the ACC, 20 and a half fouls per game. They're the only team in our conference at 20 fouls a game or above. And then nationally, those 20 fouls a game that Florida State is committing is 331st in the nation. There's only 365 only, but I say that because FSU's 331. There are 365 teams in all of Division I. They're in the bottom 30 or 40 teams. That's crazy. But here's what you know. Carolina, which has a lot of good free throw shooters on this team. Kyan Evans, 80% free throw shooter. Seth Trimble, 80% free throw shooter. Luka Bogavac, 80% free throw shooter. They're not knocking them down as a team at the level that they ought to be. Carolina right now is only making 68.4% of their free throws, which is 278th in the nation. So while it's like, oh man, that's incredible that Florida State fouls so much, because guess what? Caleb Wilson is a foul magnet, and he's going to be living at the free throw line. The problem is that Carolina is simply not proving to be able to take advantage of getting to the free throw line at time. Now, obviously, the great thing about it is the more fouls you draw, the more foul trouble it gets Florida State in and gets their best players on the bench. So that's part of the win of it too. But good grief, Carolina needs to knock down their free throws when they get to the line, because they will probably get there a bunch tonight. So force the issue, get the ball inside, have guards driving, getting to the rim, whether it's Trimble or Bogavac. You want to see a lot of that. Number 2 in the Four Corners preview. Florida State is not good from 3. And look, I know the Tar Heels aren't exactly lighting it on fire either, but compared to Florida State, they are. The Seminoles are 31.4% on the season as a team, which is 262nd in the nation, just outside the bottom 100, excuse me. But the weird thing for Florida State is that they don't shoot them well, but they take a ton of threes. 36.2 3-point attempts a game, which is second, not in the ACC, second in the nation in 3-point attempts. They literally, as a team, take more threes than twos a game, 36.2 attempts to 31.5-point attempts. So essentially taking 5 more threes a game than twos. And for a team that's not shooting well from beyond the arc, like bottom 100 bad, that doesn't make any sense until you remember that their brand new coach, Luke Laux, is an NBA guy. He's been an NBA assistant for multiple years, was in line for some NBA head jobs potentially before coming back to his alma mater. And you know how the NBA game goes, right? They're jacking them up. The problem is that Florida State is proving to be shot takers, but not shot makers. That's great for Carolina, who, oh, by the way, just so happens to be 19th in the nation, only allowing their opponents to make 28% of their threes. So that, my friends, is a good combination. A Carolina strength. A lot of times we talk about strength on strength. This is strength on weakness. Carolina is strong at stopping the threes, FSU is strong at taking them and bad at making them. That could be a good sign for Carolina. Point number 3 in our Four Corners preview, rebounding. FSU, a little bit of a yin and yang on the offensive and defensive glass. They are great on the offensive glass. They're 11th in the nation, getting 14.6 offensive rebounds per game. On the flip side, though, they're not great on the defensive glass, ironically enough. 24.1 defensive rebounds per game, which is just 250th in the nation. And so you look at it and you recognize that Carolina is pretty good on the offensive glass, at least in the Hubert Davis era standards. They are from an offensive rebounding percentage. Carolina is 12.1 offensive rebounds per game, which matches up interestingly with that FSU defensive rebounds, which is not great. So Carolina should lead there. But the strength on strength is, again, remember, I said FSU is 11th nationally in 14.6 offensive rebounds per game. Carolina is, 8th nationally in defensive rebounds per game at 30.2. Something's got to give there. That is strength on strength. So we're paying very close attention to Carolina doing a great job defensively, but then ending it with a defensive rebound where, again, you see that Florida State is doing a really nice job with offensive rebounding. In fact, let me look at their offensive rebound percentage really quick here. Yeah, 34.5%, which is 84th in the nation. Obviously, they're higher than that in total offensive rebounds per game. Part of that is because FSU plays at a really fast pace, so there's going to be a lot of possessions in this game, so that we'll come to that in just a second. But that could play into as well why they're getting so many offensive rebounds per game. But one of the things to watch in this game is, can Carolina stop FSU from getting a whole bunch of offensive rebounds? Being able to end defensive possessions with the rebound is critical. Got to box out, got to rebound outside your area. That'll be the third thing we're watching for. Four Corners preview point number 4. I just mentioned it, but Florida State plays fast, and boy, do they cause turnovers. It's weird to say this when we're talking about a Carolina basketball team, but Carolina's going to have to watch that they don't get too sped up in this game, right? It's weird because usually we're saying run, and try to speed your opponent up. In this game, Carolina doesn't probably actually want to get into a track meet except when it makes sense to. Now that Seth Trimble is back, the transition game is picking back up, and that's great. That's encouraging, and you love to see that. However, FSU wants to go absolute warp speed, and that's one of the places where they would have an advantage against Carolina. But we all know, because of how often we said it in the Tony Bennett Virginia era, it's much easier to slow a team down than it is for a team to speed you up. So that could play to Carolina's advantage in this thing. Do not let Florida State force the issue, cause live ball turnovers, and take off running the other way. So a couple things with that. Florida State right now is 6th nationally in adjusted tempo per KenPom, and they're 6th also in shortest average possession length. And that adds up when you think about that pace of possession they play at. And so Carolina, there's that side of it, but the other side of it is that Florida State not only is playing fast, but they're good at causing turnovers. And this is a strength on strength situation. Carolina is doing really good at taking care of the basketball, single-digit turnovers in 5 of their last 7 games. This is a game where you got to pay attention, not necessarily to total turnovers, but turnover percentage. Why? Because 12 turnovers in this game is going to be a much smaller turnover percentage than a game with many fewer possessions or against a team that plays slower. So keep that in mind as well. But FSU leads the ACC and is 24th nationally in steals at 9.8 steals per game. Carolina, again, as I said, have been doing well taking care of the basketball, but man, that's something you really got to watch out for tonight. Do not let Florida State create those turnovers. And if they do, you better hope to everything you can that you're not allowing them to create live ball turnovers, which lead immediately to points off turnovers. That's what cannot happen. That's how a lesser team on the road keeps themselves in a basketball game. So watch out for that as we wrap the Four Corners preview. So we got to get to know who this Florida State team is, get ready for the game, get to know their personnel, where they're at in rankings and all that kind of stuff, and game prediction. Plus, we'll update where the women's basketball score is. All that coming up in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel. You guys, Fridays already feel different during basketball season, and FanDuel is trying to make them even better. Here's why. Every Friday night before games tip off, FanDuel is giving you fans a new way to kick off the weekend with the NBA Happy Hour, which is your official pregame. Basically, it's a limited time window where special offers drop right inside the FanDuel app before all the action starts. This is going to be Fridays from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and that's going to be appointment viewing for you every Friday now with the NBA Happy Hour. So you open up the FanDuel app, it's always going to bring you something new during Happy Hour, whether it's boosts, bonuses, other surprises, whatever. And it's easy to check on those weekly specials before tip-off and make a move before the Happy Hour window closes. Plus, the timing is perfect. It's right before the games, right before the weekend starts. It's going to add extra energy to your already hyped Friday night basketball without overthinking it. It's not the Happy Hour, but this game tonight, Carolina favored by 14.5 over the Seminoles. So again, before tip-off, check the FanDuel app and see what's dropping during NBA Happy Hour every Friday from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A little basketball, a little action, a whole lot of Friday night energy. That's NBA Happy Hour only on FanDuel, the official sportsbook partner of the NBA. All right, let's get ready for this basketball game. Tonight, Carolina hosting Florida State December 30th in Chapel Hill, the Dean E. Smith Center, 7 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. FanDuel has it Carolina by 14.5, as we just mentioned in the ad read. The KenPom line, slightly more, Carolina by 15. The Torvik line, even slightly more, Carolina 16.3 points. The all-time series record here is Carolina 54-16. Yikes, that is lopsided, but obviously a lot of the Leonard Hamilton area, the Seminoles were able to get some wins against the Tar Heels, but Carolina, I would not have guessed this until I was going back through the numbers here. Carolina has won 6 straight against Florida State. That's kind of crazy stuff. Mentioned it earlier, but Luke Laux is in his first season back at his alma mater. He was a guard for the Seminoles from 2008 to 2012, and this is kind of a trend we've seen. Laux was an NBA assistant. We've seen multiple other schools do this, bring back guys to either be their head coach or on their staff. BYU has done it. Utah has done it. Kansas has done it, bringing Jacques Vaughn. He's the assistant for Bill Self, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if he eventually, when Bill Self retires, became the man. Florida State obviously not ranked in the AP poll right now. They were picked 15th out of the 18 ACC teams preseason poll. Currently, they're 129th at the net. That makes this a quad 3 game. The quad 3 at home range is 76 to 160, so kind of comfortably in quad 3 territory. Right now, they're 110th at KenPom, 109th at Torvik, really close there. 115th in offensive efficiency at KenPom, 125th at Torvik offense. Defense 114 and 101. So just outside the 100 range for both the offense and the defense and the team in totality. So far, FSU has a winning record, barely. The Noles are 7-6, but their wins are not really anything. I'll explain why. Here's the 7 teams they beat: Alcorn State, Alabama State, UT Martin, Georgia Southern, Cal State Bakersfield, Mississippi Valley State, who is the worst team in all of Division I, and Jacksonville. All 7 of those teams are outside the top 200 at KenPom. 6 of those 7 teams are outside the top 200 in the net. UT Martin is the only one that's inside the top 200, and they're 164. All that to say, they've not beaten any teams of consequence so far, Florida State. And then their losses in non-con: Florida, understandable; Houston, understandable; Georgia, better than most people realize; Texas A&M, coming along under new coach Bucky McMillan, who came over from Samford; Dayton, and UMass. So a lot of those losses are like, hey, it's understandable. Totally get UMass, though. That's kind of an embarrassing loss that should not have happened for Florida State. And the other problem for FSU is it's not just the Tar Heels. After Carolina, their next 2 ACC games are they host Duke and then they host NC State. So very easily could start ACC play 0-3 against those 3 schools in the state of North Carolina. We often do the usual starters for the opponent, and quite frankly, for Florida State, there is no such thing as usual starter. Coach Laux has used 6 different lineups in their 13 games. One of those has been used 7 times, but that was earlier in the season. because in their 5 games since December 2nd, they've gone with 5 different starting lineups. So that said, I'm going to throw some of this out on the wall for you, and then we'll pay attention to what actually happens when the starting lineups are announced tonight. So there are 2 players who have started every game. That is not Kobe. It is Lejay Jones and Robert McCray, who we talked about earlier, the point guard. And then you've got Chauncey Wiggins, the Clemson transfer, who has started 10 games, as has Alex Steen, who started 10 games. And then Kobe McGee has started 9. But the thing is, for Florida State, 9 players have started at least 1 game. So what I expect is that 5 of the following 6 players will be your starters. It all starts with Robert McCray. We talked about him earlier. Not only does, as I mentioned, he lead Florida State and the ACC in assists at 7.1 assists per game, he's also their leading scorer at 13.5 points a game. So when I say got to cut the head off the snake, it is none other than Robert McCray the 5th. Now, one of the things that is a little bit of an issue, yes, 7.1 assists, but he's only got a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio because he's committing 3.5 turnovers a game. But man, his assist percentage is ridiculous. 48% assist ratio. I mean, you guys, that is crazy, crazy stuff. The starting 2 guard typically is Martin Somerville, 6'3". He is a UMass Lowell transfer. I forgot to mention Robert McCray is a Jacksonville transfer. Kobe McGee, typically the starting 3, small forward, 6'5". And so we're pretty even with Luka, assuming he's starting at the 5. He's a Drexel transfer. At the 4 is typically Lejay Jones, who's a 6'7" guy. He's a St. Bonaventure transfer. And then at the 5 is typically Chauncey Wiggins, 6'10", who, as I mentioned earlier, is a Clemson transfer. But the other guy, as I said, Alex Steen has started 10 games, but he's not been doing it as much lately. He has been the leading rebounder for this team at 6.7 rebounds per game. Interestingly, he's a senior, but this is his first year in Division I, came up from the D2 rank. So really cool. Like that is the part of the transfer portal that I absolutely love to see, is guys getting these opportunities to just keep moving up the ranks when they're good enough. Now, what you need to know is, regardless of who starts, here are the 5 guys that are getting starters minutes. It's Robert McCray, or averaging the 5 most minutes on the team. Robert McCray, Lejay Jones is number 2. He's the starting power forward typically. Martin Somerville, the shooting guard. Chauncey Wiggins, the 5, and then and Kobe McGee at the 3. So it's those 5 guys that are getting the starters minutes. So even if Alex Steen starts, I don't expect him to necessarily get starters level minutes. So that's what to be aware of. And then the depth beyond those starters, Steen, McGee, whoever doesn't start between them. Cam Miles, who is the only rotation player that hasn't started a game. He's a true freshman, but he gets the 6th most minutes. So there's all these weird anomalies for Florida State in that regard. And then AJ Swinton and Thomas Basong. That's kind of the 9 deep that FSU will go. My prediction for this game, again, FSU going to go fast. Lots of possessions, trying to wreak some havoc. But I do think that Carolina holds a 14th straight opponent under 75 to start the season. I'm going to go 85-70 in favor of the Tar Heels at home. Quick check on women's basketball before we get out of here. As I said, it was a blowout at halftime. Oh my. 5 minutes to go in the 4th quarter. Tar Heels lead by 50 right now, 83-33. That is a crazy number. Really, really good for the ladies. Again, they're on the road up at Boston College. Leading scorer is Nyla Harris with 19. And then it's always the Nyla show, Nyla Brooks with 15 off the bench. Really cool to see. Expect the ladies to close that one out with these. All right, you guys, as I mentioned on yesterday's show, but in case you missed it, I will be traveling home today. I'll be home tonight, though, to be able to go live after the game. And so excited to be back with you live. It's like those moments in between where we don't have those opportunities. I miss it. And so looking forward to you being in there, hanging out with us tonight as well. We'll have Coach Rob later in the week. We'll get ready on Friday's show for the SMU game, which will be on Saturday. So make sure to be locked in with us. One of the great ways to do that is make sure you're subscribed both on YouTube and on audio so you don't miss a second. On YouTube, if you hit that bell notification, it'll make sure that you get notified when we go live and when new episodes are premiering so that you don't miss a second. You can tap right in. If you've not joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord, that link's in the show notes, as is the link for the brand new Everydayers Club. We'd love to see you in there as well. You guys, it's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Can't wait to talk to you again tonight after Carolina, hopefully 1-0 in ACC play. But until then, peace.